Good morning. It's Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday. It's the day that we all remember that sitting is the new smoking. So I'm going to ask everyone to stand back up again. It's a wonderful day. I'm going to be leaving for the Chicago Midwinter meeting pretty soon. And I anticipate learning a lot about a lot of new products and a lot of new ideas while I'm down there. Plus, I'll get to share a few as well. It's pretty nice day out here today. It's going to be a good day for a drive. It looks like my car's going to get dirty, though. The streets are pretty wet. The snow is melting. We had quite a bit of snow recently, and of course, that's how it happens at this time of year. You get a big pile of snow, and then it all melts, and everything is dirty. So today is a wellness day, and we're going to talk a little bit about something other than just diet and just foods and where our food comes from today. We're going to be talking about kinesiology, and our guest is Linda Gross, and she is a state-certified reading specialist with expertise in diagnosing and remediating dyslexia for children and adults. She is also certified in brain integration programs utilizing applied kinesiology, which is muscle testing, in order to alleviate stress, increase attention and concentration, improve memory, and enhance learning in all areas of life. She combines her extensive academic background with holistic kinesiologic programs in order to provide an integrative education experience that ensures success for her clients. So let's bring Linda Gross into the studio. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Shirley. So nice for you to have me on.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I really am super duper interested in this topic. Why don't you tell us what kinesiology is and kind of describe it a little bit for us?
Kinesiology actually comes from the word kinesis, which is a Greek word that means movement. So kinesiology is just the science of human muscle movement. What I do is applied kinesiology, and this is a form of diagnosis using what we call muscle monitoring or muscle testing in order to get access from the body. Chiropractors have used this a lot, and they still do. It's also used in the educational fields, and it's a way of combining the ancient Oriental meridian system with the modern Western muscle testing system. That's really what they mean by applied kinesiology. I don't know if any of your listeners have ever had supplements tested. They do this sometimes through muscle monitoring. You can get a positive response if you need a certain supplement. You're aware of any of that?
No. This is what I've seen happen. Someone will have a product in their hand, and they will do certain movements and then decide whether those movements were enhanced or disenhanced by the product that they were holding.
Okay, now, I'm assuming that somebody was muscle testing the person, because you would get some type of a response from the body, and that is using applied kinesiology. So that's what I'm assuming you're thinking about, because I don't use any vitamins or supplements unless I muscle test them or have someone do that to me. So we can use this system to balance energy, to remove stressors from the body, and it works especially well to clear attention problems, concentration problems, helps memory. And the system that I use is called Crossinology's brain integration technique. So this is a way to balance the left side of the brain with the right side of the brain and take the stress out of the learning process.
So how is that done? What does that look like?
Okay, well,
this is not a surgical intervention, obviously.
That's correct. We do this very non-invasively. a person could be muscle tested just lying on a massage table in a very relaxed way, and I would muscle test by touching the wrist very gently, and I can get a response, becomes a biofeedback mechanism whereby I can actually locate stressors in the body by going through a diagnostic step of like 80 different diagnostic tools that we use. We do this, and each time we get information or find out where there is a stressor, we can release it. Let me give you an example. I was working with a dyslexic child who was, for reading, trying to teach her to read and do this a certain way, and she was very stressed and broke into tears, didn't want to do it, and even Dad couldn't get her to do anything. So I said, let's try some kinesiology. They didn't know what it was, so I opened the massage table, and she lay down, and through muscle testing, I was able to ascertain that she hated reading, and I said, well, when did this start? And I'm accessing information again from her body. So we found out that this started at about 6 years old, and sometimes we can, through acupressure, just relieve that stress and that negative influence that was affecting her. But her body said that we had to know what happened. Well, I certainly didn't know what happened, so I very gently touched her forehead, just pressing on acupressure points. And all of a sudden, she burst into tears, and she started sobbing. She said, Mrs. Tate made me read out loud. And she was sobbing and sobbing, and she said that Mrs. Tate told me that I didn't get any single word right. Well, she kept this up until we finally released this negativity that was holding her back and blocking her for many, many years. So that's an example of what we can do. Is that making sense?
So, yeah, but I'm just wondering now, how does this, because it sounds similar to, talk therapy, and you're saying that by using those acupressure points, you were able to get to the cause of her distress faster?
Yes.
And isolate it faster, and you were able to release it faster.
That is correct, exactly. And you can do these kinds of releases through every step of the process that we do. We're constantly just looking for the old memory trace, which influences us today, and we're releasing them. It's almost like yoga. When you think of yoga, you're really talking about balancing energy, but that's something that you do over a lifetime. And kinesiology, this applied kinesiology, can be done in approximately 12 hours and give you tremendous peace of mind, clarity, better memory. It has lots and lots of valuable results.
Sounds like you would be able to treat a lot of things that maybe aren't traditionally treated that way. You're talking mostly about memory and memory enhancement, right?
Right, right, absolutely.
Okay, and dyslexia and ADHD and some of these other dysfunctions. So how would you use this to work on somebody's memory? My poor mother has been complaining about her memory since I can remember.
Well, we would go through this 80-step process, and it's almost like if you brought your car in to be serviced, if there was something wrong, they would take every part apart or take it out, and they would work on each part and repair it. Then at the end, they put everything back into the car and then test drive it. So we do the same sort of thing with the body. We'll start with first the limbic system, which is an emotional filter that the brain and through which the brain processes all information. And we keep working through different systems in the body. And each time we're looking for a stressor, something that is disrupting that energy flow. And we keep balancing it so that by the end, we're ready to integrate or put the parts back together again. And then we actually do this test drive by performing some educational type tests to see the differences. And then it could be in memory, it could be in spelling, it could be in reading comprehension, and the results are always far different from when the person started.
So a lot of this, I would imagine, some people are calling kind of voodoo. So how are you measuring? Do you have physiological measurements that you use to track these successes?
Yes, there probably isn't the same kind of scientific research, but there is some out there. Susan McCrossin, who developed Crossinology, brain integration technique, which is what I use, does have some of the information and her research on her website, which is Crossinology.com.
I was on your website, and you had a little video of this Crossinology kind of treatment on your website.
Right, and that I put that on there so that people could see what it actually looks like. They could see the client lying on a massage table and seeing that nothing invasive was being done, and you can just watch how Susan gently touches the body to get access to information.
Okay. All right, so we were talking a little about some measurements that you would use. So if somebody was coming to you for spelling, let's say, you would be able to measure that pretty easily. But what about scattered thoughts or something memory-wise?
Right. We use specific techniques for spelling, and that's fairly simple to measure at the end. We also do things such as digits forward and digits reversed, which is part of IQ testing, and we always see progress in that. And what I mean by the digits forward is that a person is asked to repeat numbers that have been said going forward. Then they're asked to repeat these different numbers going backwards. And this is generally a good test for attention and concentration. We always get vast improvement in this type of thing. So that is some of the measuring we do. We also work with puzzles at the end, and we see how much faster they can put these things together. Their thinking clears. It's just as though you're taking all the stress out of the thinking process. And sometimes I just think it's magic, frankly, because the results are just so excellent. I do. And I've been doing this now for 20 years.
There's a couple of things that I work with in dentistry that I call magic, and that are just really fantastic. And it kind of sounds like this is getting to be into that category. So I'm going to go way off here for a second, because I've always said that my weight problem was in my head. It wasn't in my stomach. And all of the weight loss programs deal specifically with what it is that you eat. And it just never made any sense to me. I've lost so much weight already, and here it is, it just won't go away. It won't stay away. So I'm thinking that this Crossinology thing may be the ticket that I'm missing, because I've tried counseling, I've tried hypnosis, and then she wanted to do a regression. That hypnosis lady wanted to do a regression. I'm like, okay, for one thing, I'm Catholic, so I'm already busting up a bunch of rules right now. And if you want to take me to a past life, which I've never had, that's not going to happen. So this sounds like something that would be would kind of address. Could you address that?
I am a reading specialist, okay? So my area is learning and education. That is my specialty. I don't think I would even attempt to get into the area of weight management. But I would imagine there are probably health practitioners, people who even do applied kinesiology, who may tackle that. But it's not one of my specialties.
Oh, all right. I'll just make some calls then.
I'm sorry, I wish I could help you.
When you were describing that little girl and the way that she released her drama there of being humiliated in school, it just made me think that would really be, and I'm sure there are other people that have a weight issue that comes like that. So that's why I was thinking about that. So really what you're doing is you're enhancing people's memory, right? You're not treating.
Indeed. That's right. There are no drugs. In fact, people who have been on medication for ADD, attention deficit disorder, have been able to go off of their medication. And I've had both adults and children who have stopped taking medication.
Does this work really well for children on the autism spectrum also? Can you help them?
What they say about that is that on the autism spectrum, if you get the child at a very early age. However, I have had high-functioning autistic children and have seen wonderful results. We've had excellent results. So I think it depends on the severity.
I was at a conference, an autism conference, and I think the way that you described it and the way that it looked on that video, there was someone there doing something like that with like a massage table, and they were, I don't know, it just looked like what you were just describing. Some of the members were saying that it was very, very expensive. Is this a really expensive kind of a way to go?
Well, it takes about 12 hours, and it would just depend upon, what the practitioner charges. And I think the range is probably anywhere from, I'm going to kind of guess, $125 maybe to about $175 an hour.
Okay. And that's not 12 hours in a row. Those are 12 visits,
No, you
right?
can spread it out. You could spread it out over 2 years.
Oh.
I mean, you could do it longer, but some people want to do it in 2 days. Some people want to just fly in and say, I'm going to get a hotel room and we'll just do it until it's done. I mean, other people want to do it gradually, and it will work either way.
Okay. So
I think it's something people can do.
Do you have a good story about somebody whose memory that you enhanced using this technique?
Well, I'm thinking of an adult. I'm thinking of an adult who was 60 years old. I worked with him last year. He came to me because he had always had difficulty with reading. However, he was a very successful business person, and he wanted to take some tests in his field. He didn't need to take these tests, but he kept failing. So he heard about what I did. I looked at his reading and said he was definitely dyslexic, diagnosed dyslexia, and I told him about the kinesiology. So he said, I'll take both. We started doing the kinesiology, and he really loved it. Within a very short period of time, and not that many sessions, his employees saw a difference in his behavior. His memory was better almost immediately. And sometimes that can happen right away. Sometimes it doesn't happen until you finish the entire program. But in his case, it was very, very obvious. So what he did, because he was feeling so great, and everybody was noticing improved memory, better concentration, he started to reduce medicine because he had also been on medicine for ADD. He went ahead and he took his reading exams, or his tests in his field, rather, and it was a lot of reading. and he failed them. I didn't know that. I didn't know he was going to take them. I didn't hear from him for about 6 weeks. He finally called me and told me how mad he was at me because he failed his reading test. And I said, you never told me that you were going to take them. I would have told you you weren't ready. He thought because he was doing so well with his concentration and his memory, he thought he could just go right in and take those tests. But what he didn't realize was that he still had to get the skills in the reading that he had missed out on his entire life. When he realized that, he made a concentrated effort to do the reading, and then within about 6 months, he mastered that also, and he went back, took his test, and he has just been thrilled about the way his life has changed. And it's been so noticeable to everyone else.
So there's a limit to the magic. You still have to do a little bit of the work, right?
Right. That's right. That's putting it really well, Shirley. Exactly.
Well, I find that to be true in a lot of different things. Well, that's a cool story, too. Go ahead.
What it does is it makes that learning process so much easier. I mean, he might have struggled with some of the reading things for a lot longer. But here, within about 6 months, we were able to just go through everything that he never had in his entire life.
Yeah, and he's already 60, so he's already had a lot of self-talk that kept him out of reading and stopped trying and all this other stuff. So, yeah, I can see where that would have been a thing. So, and then those treatments then are, for him, it was over 6 months' time, right? So you did the kinesiology and the learning, the teaching of reading, or did you just do the kinesiology treatment?
Well, I did both, but I didn't do it on a regular basis. So maybe both of them took about a year total, maybe a little less than a year.
Okay.
But we didn't start the reading for quite a while. And it wasn't as though he were coming religiously every week. We spread it out.
Mm-hmm.
So we can work around.
Well, it's hard to do that
schedule.
every week, yeah. It's hard to do that unless, well, obviously if someone's flying in. So it doesn't have to have like a rest period in between these treatments.
We give them a little rest. I mean, we do. We might work in 2-hour blocks and then take a little rest, go out, get something to eat, and come back.
Right, but you don't need like a week in between or a day, or it'll work just as well if you can do it continuously as if you were to stretch it out over time.
Absolutely.
So where can people find more information about this or a practitioner near them? Where's the best place to find information like that?
I would tell them to go to the following website. It's called Crossinology, and I'll spell that, Crossinology. That's Crossinology.com. Susan McCrossin is the founder of Crossinology, and we call it Brain Integration Technique, or B.I.T. And she will have a list of practitioners in every state on her website. So that would probably be the best way for people to access names.
Okay.
And she does have a lot of other information.
Is there like an organization of Crossinology or kinesiology people? Do you have meetings so that you have continuing education? Is there a formal, how do we know that somebody is trained well in your discipline?
Susan certifies the people, and she has ongoing training. I don't know of any other way. I mean, this is fairly new.
The kinesiology is not new. The crossinology is new.
The crossinology is, right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's very interesting. So where did you get your training in the kinesiology?
Well, I got my training in this starting about 20 years ago. As a reading specialist, I was always looking for new things in the field. So I heard about something called brain integration, and the claim was that this would improve your comprehension, and it was like a magical claim. I said, I have no idea what they're talking about. I don't know what kinesiology is. I never heard of it. So I took a course, and I must say I loved the course. It was one brain integration. It was out of a private company from California. I still didn't understand how it helped everybody in reading because I knew they still had to be taught skills, but I loved the work being done. I felt very different. My brain felt more balanced. So I had this personal experience with it. I went on to take every single course that 3-in-1 Concepts offered in kinesiology. When I finished all of their coursework, I saw that, yes, it could help in reading for certain students, but I didn't believe it could help everybody in reading. I could see how it could help some comprehension issues, how by clearing some of the negative interference and releasing the blocks, I could see how people could understand better, concentrate better. And it wasn't until 2002, I believe, that our medical experts here in the United States at Yale, the Shawitzes, came up with research that proved that dyslexics started their reading on the Gestalt side of their brain. When I read that, then I had the academic proof that what we needed to do with dyslexics was to turn on that part of the brain and get them to start their reading process. Somehow, it was almost like magic because it all clicked into my brain, and I was able to put what I learned from kinesiology with what I was learning from the Shawitzes about how dyslexics start their reading process on this Gestalt, or generally right side of the brain. I knew that this could then help everybody, and that's when I began to seriously start working on this with all of my students and began to do this more than just, in a closet, so to speak. Because prior to that, without that research, I was a little leery of it, but I became convinced very quickly. And that's when I found Susan also and started working with her just to get more training.
Linda, thank you so much for your time today. This was fascinating, and I really appreciate your sharing with us today. We are flat out of time this morning. We really appreciate you and the work that you do.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Good. So that's it for Crosslink Radio today, and we will talk again tomorrow. Tomorrow's guest is... it's so similar to this conversation. We'll be talking with Laura Van Roo, who's a chiropractor, about ear infections and chiropractic for children. So you'll see when you listen tomorrow that there's some elements that kind of crossed over with our discussion today, and I think that was pretty interesting. So have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk